Most men are tired, not empty. The age of ease sold them a promise. Stay comfortable, stay safe. You deserve rest. But comfort never forged identity. It anesthetizes hunger, ambition, conviction, and the quiet voice in your mind that still believes you were built for something harder. The modern world hands men crowns made of cushions, not iron. It flatters weakness enough to disguise it as self-care. Strength without resistance is decoration. A man kneels first to comfort long before he bows to anything great. The result is not a sudden collapse, but a slow dethroning of self-command. This is the hour men must hear again. Stand to claim your backbone, or kneel into a version of yourself you will not recognize. You have been told that freedom is doing what you want, when you want, as long as it feels good. But a man who cannot tell himself no is not free. He is automated by impulse. Modern masculinity celebrates spontaneity, yet fears self-governance. It applauds volume, but avoids weight. It calls aggression authenticity, contentment low standards, distraction normal, appetite personality, boundary-setting arrogance. The inversion is perfect. Men believe they stand because they are loud, while their discipline is absent, their inner spine untested. Comfort culture did not remove chains. It replaced them with invisible ones, padded in convenience. Real strength is not emotional volatility, but emotional restraint. Honor is not a trend. Discipline is not personality. Brotherhood is not a hashtag. Respect to women is not appearance, but posture of mind. The modern Templar metaphor shocks precisely because it reminds you what you call ordinary, earlier rising, sharper mind, kept oath, used to be baseline. The modern Templar archetype is misunderstood on purpose, not because it is mystical, but because it demands a higher court than comfort, distraction, and impulse. It insists that a man's life is shaped first by the standards he holds internally, long before any external evidence testifies for him. The modern crisis of masculinity is not a lack of potential, but a surrender of willpower delivered in small decisions no one sees. Men kneel to comfort in increments. A workout skipped, an apology left unsaid, a desire unchecked, a truth avoided, a boundary softened, a mind left porous. None of these moments look dramatic alone. Combined, they form the quiet architecture of a collapsed spine. The ancient orders tested men early and inwardly, demanding mental fortitude before emotional expression, deeds before self-perception, silence before proclamation, and oaths that cost. Brotherhood was not built on sympathy, but on shared standards and accountability. Honor was not emotional, it was structural. Courage was not aggression, it was posture under restraint. Respect to women was not sentiment, it was conduct rooted in dignity. Identity was not discovered outward, but proven inward, then enacted outward. A modern Templar standard in this era is simply a man who accepts self-command as the first battleground. His discipline is armor, his boundaries are vows, his brotherhood is accountability, not mood. His courage stands firm because his mind is fortified long before his emotions speak, and when he encounters temptation, confrontation, fatigue, injustice, pride, or comfort, his spine does not waver. Not because the world validated him, but because he already validated his principles through repetition, restraint, kept oaths, boundaries enforced, appetite ruled, mind armored, and legacy-oriented silence. Christ must be presented not as rhetoric, but as the final prototype of masculine spine. Not religion, standard, not trend, blueprint, not inspiration, backbone. Jesus confronted temptation without theatrics, walked in restraint without negotiation, set boundaries without apology, respected women without distortion, and proved identity rooted in principle, not convenience. Every man, search for the unshakable example, eventually reaches his standard, often before learning his name. The standard was always his. Stand, not because it sounds like a legend, but because kneeling to comfort has cost your identity long enough. This is the hour men must reclaim. Your mind as a fortress, your boundaries as vows, your brotherhood as accountability, your restraint as strength, your courage as posture, your legacy as seed, your oath as backbone. This is not rhetoric. It is posture. It is resolve. It is inner command reclaimed. You think the collapse will roar when it arrives, but it has been whispering in invoices. A man loses his spine the same way a kingdom loses its gates, when he negotiates with small breaches because none of them look fatal on their own. Comfort is strategic. It keeps you from sharpening your mind because a dull mind asks fewer questions. It keeps you from setting boundaries because an unbounded man demands nothing, not even of himself. It keeps you busy enough to avoid the silence where deeper identity speaks, and it keeps you numb enough to believe your chains are pillows. Masculine fortitude lives in precedence. What you practice quietly becomes your conduct publicly. The modern crisis is repetition of softness, not strength. You repeat scrolling more than restraint. You repeat indulgence more than discipline. You repeat reaction more than silence. You repeat noise more than clarity. The result? A man ruled by impulse believes himself sovereign because no one demanded evidence. A true oath-bearing man recognizes that identity is forged through kept standards and internal self-command. If your mind is an open field, anything can occupy it. So you must build internal fortifications. Not emotional walls, but principled ones. Discipline is not emotional intensity. It is antecedence. It is doing what is required long before urgency screams. Christ becomes the silent conclusion, not because you shouted his name, but because his standard is where every unshakable masculine backbone ultimately bends. A modern Templar stands because his no carries more weight than his mood. He restores discipline before trust, boundaries before autonomy, silence before validation, brotherhood before sympathy, restraint before impulse, legacy before indulgence, honor before applause. His courage has gravity because his mind has precedent. You were told that vulnerability is emotional exposure, but ancient masculine strength defines vulnerability differently. The inability to defend your own mind. A man who cannot guard his internal space is defenseless long before he looks wounded. It is not softness to reclaim discipline. It is strategy. It is oath. It is spine restored in repetitions no one sees, until everyone can. Pause. If this is cutting you, it is because your spine is still alive. Do not let this clarity dissolve into comfort. Take the next hard step with intention. Enter the 60-day discipline and virtue order. Prove your oath in action. Link pinned in the first comment. The verdict of comfort is not failure, but disfigurement of self-command. It warps identity so gently that the man believes the erosion is natural aging, natural exhaustion, natural compromise, natural distraction. But nothing about a man collapsing into comfort is natural. It is conditioned. The age of ease trains men into reflexive kneeling. No kneecaps required, no ceremony, no watchtower, no witness. Just the daily quiet abdication, postponing discipline, avoiding standards, outsourcing confrontation, medicating hunger, numbing conviction, diluting interior fortitude. The masculine backbone every man seeks is not retrieved by wishing, but by enforcement. By a pattern of internal verdicts where you judge yourself first, sharpen yourself first, command yourself first, restrain yourself first, fortify your mind first, set your boundaries first, Honor women first through conduct, and practice brotherhood first through accountability rather than convenience. Christ becomes the conclusion not because he appeals to the dramatic man, but because he appeals to the resolved man. He is the prototype of masculine standard, not sentimentality, but backbone, not decoration, but structure, not trend, but the precedent of moral restraint, unnegotiated boundaries, silent courage, unapplauded discipline, and identity forged in principle rather than convenience. Jesus is not emotional intensity, he is steadfast posture under confrontation. He did not kneel to comfort when unseen, and therefore did not bow to temptation when seen. A man will never stand publicly where he still kneels privately. This is the resolution every man must pronounce internally. Comfort is no longer my court. Impulse is no longer my crown. Noise is no longer my counsel. Distraction is no longer my standard. Brotherhood means accountability, not sympathy without gravity. Honor means restraint, not theatrics. Respect to women means conduct, not pose. Courage means silent posture under principle, not emotional exposure without discipline. Legacy means internal seeds planted in oaths that cost. Stand, not theatrically, not sentimentally, but finally, as a man restored inwardly, practicing strength long before anyone calls it sacred. Jesus is not a narrative adornment. He is the standard men reach when they stop kneeling to comfort long before they learn his name. Reclamation of backbone begins where most men have been trained to fail, at the threshold of ordinary days. 5 practices become your internal order. Rise before comfort votes. Set your waking hour intentionally, earlier than your impulse prefers. The day gains shape when defied at its first gate. Train without negotiation. Physical discipline, running, lifting, martial craft, is not emotional therapy, but oath reinforcement. Consistency proves capacity more than intensity ever will. Institute mental fasting, not only from food, but from noise. Vacancy in the mind is seized territory. Guard internal silence daily. No spectacle, no witness, just fortress maintenance. Set boundaries as vows, not suggestions. Say no to what erodes your oath. Scrolling, indulgence, softness in speech, blurred intentions. A boundary is a spoken wall backed by conduct. Practice brotherhood through evidence. Choose a small circle of men you grant accountability rights to question your standards weekly. Not for applause, but for internal court alignment. These are not motivational acts. They are internal constitutions. A man does not feel strong and then obey. He obeys, repeats, restrains, fortifies, then finally recognizes identity standing tall without padding. A man is not undone by storms, but by ceilings he agreed to quietly. Comfort asked for your knees so slowly you almost called the surrender routine. The crisis of this age is not opposition, it is anesthesia. Your strength is intact only where it is exercised against ease. Stand inwardly before the world ever demands you to bow outwardly. Identity bends toward a prototype, and history already delivered the unshakable one in Christ. Not religion, but standard. Jesus is the final key men reach when silence becomes weight, discipline becomes precedent, boundaries become vows, courage carries gravity, women are honored through conduct, and brotherhood is accountability with evidence. Before you kneel again to ease, hear the verdict. You cannot defend a legacy you have never practiced internally. Stand, not by rhetoric, but by restored spine, quietly aligned to the only backbone every unyielding man ultimately finds, long before he learns his name.